It's the Omid and Kojo Show. Welcome back to the Dimitri and Kojo Show. Don't I look with this chain on? I look like I should be called Dimitri and I sell vodka. That's where I'm at right now.
Suit you. Some kind of merchant. So if you're watching on the YouTube, you might notice me and Omid snuggling in together. It's actually not because we're Ben, it's because we're also doing a live as well. So don't worry about that. I know you might have been worried, but it's not that. We've got some really good topics today. We're going to get into it. We're going to get down and dirty with the tricking talk. We're going to get philosophical. It's going to be deep. You might cry. I might cry.
I've been crying this whole time.
So let's get into it.
The build up to this has been emotional.
All right. The first thing I want to get into is the relationship between enjoyment and progression and how you approach both of these factors in your tricking. Because some people say, oh, if you're not having fun, you're not tricking. That's what I used to hear a lot when I started. Yeah. But then at the same time, you don't want to be one of those people who never improves at all, because that's not that fun. Like most of those people end up giving up. It doesn't fulfill you in the long run if you're not getting any better.
Okay, so your standpoint is, let me just try and dig down to what your standpoint is. You don't think it's important to enjoy tricking at all times, but you think it's an element to progression?
No, not necessarily.
Okay, so what is it then?
I think the goal should be to enjoy tricking all of the time. But you also have to, the progression aspect is really important too. So I mean, you can't only have the goal to enjoy tricking, otherwise you don't get that good. You got to think about progression, even if that makes enjoying it hard sometimes. So what I mean by that, let's say, I'll use an example from my own life. Mm-hmm. I found touchdown raise really hard to learn. I'm always blabbering on about it all the goddamn time.
He does.
Yeah. He does. So I hated doing it. So it wasn't super fun for me to learn. But when I decided to do the 1,000 rep challenge, then by counting my reps and by keeping track, I managed to make it fun to practice. So rather than thinking this isn't fun, I'm not going to do it, I acknowledged that I needed to do it to progress as much as I wanted, and then found a way to make it fun. So that's what I mean. Maybe putting the progression first and then making the progression fun, rather than just looking at what's fun and trying to make that into progression, because it doesn't normally work out that way. You end up just doing what's easy sometimes and never overcoming the things you need to overcome.
Okay, so I'm going to try and summarize your point so that I understand, and then I want to play devil's advocate to try and
go on, big man.
So what you're saying is your goal should be to enjoy it all of the time. However, you do need to accept that in order to progress to the level that you may want to, which is quite difficult, you have to sometimes put up with things that you're not going to enjoy quite as much.
Yeah, and figure out ways to make yourself enjoy it.
Okay, but do you not think, devil's advocate here, because I don't know, Kojo and I pretty much agree with most things.
We agree on too many things, which I don't like.
So we need to argue about some stuff, and I'm going to play devil's advocate in order to do that.
Go on then.
So, do you think...
Devil mid.
Do you think that if you're not enjoying the stuff that you're doing, then as long as you're doing the reps, then you're going to be able to progress? Because I think that if you don't enjoy it, then you may not progress as quickly as you like, because you're a little bit more, I don't know.
You're not enthusiastic.
Exactly, yeah.
No, I agree. I agree that if you're not enjoying it, but then I think you have to find a way to enjoy it and change your mindset, change your approach to it, try and get inspired, mix up the way you train, maybe do some other stuff for a bit, but still come back to it. I think it's more about sticking to your path in some ways, having your goals, figuring out practical, effective ways to work towards those goals, and then making that fun. Okay.
All right. Yeah, that makes sense.
For lots of it. And another side of this with the enjoyment versus progression, it's think about it like this, just with enjoying your life. It's fun to maybe go for drinks with your friends or something from time to time, to socialize, to have a good time, to go to the discotheque. Could be fun from time to time, you know, boogie and all that.
Get down and dirty.
Get down and dirty, you know. But if you were drinking hardcore every single night, then it wouldn't be good for you. It wouldn't be good for how you feel. You wouldn't be feeling that great. So I think with some stuff like that, it's like, it's good to let your hair down in your tricking session and just do whatever and have a bit, like, just try some mad shit and just like go in, get really hype. But if you're taking a load of painkillers and doing pre-workout every day and going hard for hours, then you're just going to destroy your body. So I think it's all about balance, isn't it? Like, you can't just do the... Because for me, I would have the most fun if I just had a bunch of painkillers and took a load of pre-workout and then tricked for 4 hours. I'd love that.
Yeah.
I used to love doing that all the time. But I realised it's not the best for progression, even though it can be super fun, just spamming trips, getting really hype. It's not the best for progression because it can fuck your body up.
Well, that's the thing. The problem with that, I've found, is that it seems like you're progressing, but then it's only years later that you realise, because you did that too many times, you pushed yourself to the point where you needed 2 months off, and then you fucked it. So you got to go straight back to square one. You got to build everything back up again.
And just overall, I don't know, it got to a point with me where, because I was trying to train so much, I wanted to train like 5-6 times a week, tramping loads in between, or just training all the time. Mm-hmm. It's like, you do progress, but you end up getting all these little injuries that set you back every like few weeks or month. And eventually it gets to the point where if you trick 2 or 3 times a week, every single week, and being really careful, if you didn't get those injuries, over the course of a year, you'd be able to trick more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel you.
So,
okay, well, so this leads on to the next topic that we were going to discuss, the mental health one.
Oh, goddamn, getting into the mental health.
Yeah, because...
Alright, but well, yeah, I'll do this. I need to download Instagram. Okay. So I can have a look at these comments, because yours aren't loading.
I thought you was just like, I just want to be able to have a browse through Instagram.
Yeah, I'm just going to look at some new shows, say.
Yeah. So,
what
was your original question with that one?
Is tricking good for your mental health? Is it gonna make you healthy? Is it gonna make you happy? Is it gonna make you really sad?
I think
that's what I want to know. That's what Sam Kojo wants to know.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go with the sad side, and I think, depending on how you approach it and what you do with tricking, it can make you really sad. And I think you need to be careful with it, because using the analogy that you said before, it's not even necessarily too much, but doing things in the wrong manner. Like, if you were going out and drinking with your friends all of the time, then it's a problem, and it's going to cause you to end up being self-destructive, essentially, because you're drinking too much and you're doing bad things as a result of that. And with tricks, if you're doing it way too much and you're getting injured all the time, and I don't know, giving into that immediate satisfaction of doing it, then you end up being sad.
One more on the con side as well, for like it being bad for your mental.
Okay.
Yeah. Comparison is the thief of joy. That quote. Don't know who said it, but someone said it, and it's a good quote. It is the thief of joy. If you're comparing yourself to Shosei, you're never gonna have that much fun. And then even if, like, just whoever you compare yourself to, there's always gonna be someone who's gonna be way better than you.
Yeah.
Like, no matter how hard you try, even if you do everything perfectly, unless you were someone who does everything perfectly, and you had the right circumstances, you had your own gym, you had the right community around you, you started when you were a little kid, you're the right height. Unless you have all those things, there's gonna be someone who's way better than you. Yeah. So if you're basing your enjoyment off how good you are in relation to other people, then you're always gonna be kind of disappointed.
And in order to be that, you kind of got to be 1 in a million. So if you are that 1 in a million,
then great. But even if you're that 1 in a million, there's going to be someone better that comes along eventually.
Yeah.
Like, it's a losing battle. You'll never win that game.
Yeah.
So I think that's another side that can get people pretty upset. I know when I was younger, I used to feel like that more, like, oh shit, everyone's so good. And it does take away, it makes you feel worse about yourself if you tie your tricking level to how your personal view of yourself.
Yeah, and it's really easy to do because social media is so, I don't know, it's so in your face all of the time, like how good everybody else is. But again, you only see those things, you only see the best things on Instagram. You're not going to see people repping these things out over and over again and failing until they get it.
Yeah. Well, it's like when we went to the Isle of Wight, a load of those kids that got really discouraged and didn't even want to trick because they had Instagram, saw how good like Shosei and Zen were, and they just felt so bad about their own tricks that they just didn't even want to do it anymore.
Yeah, that's
a genuine, real thing.
You see, because at least our kind of emotional and mental state would fluctuate. It was like we'd be like, oh, it was so bad.
But we were progressing.
But we want to get way better. So the only way we can do it is by really pushing and getting through this hard time of not being able to do the things we want to do. And yeah, you got to just kind of take control of your mind. But Okay, so for the positives, there's so many.
Try and argue some of these positives. See if you can. So one of them, I think it's pretty hard to argue, but good. It's good for you in the same way that all exercise just makes you feel better. It's just good. It releases endorphins that make you feel good. So, that's kind of I don't know if you can argue that. If you can argue that one, go for it.
Well, high impact things do hurt your body.
So that was going to be my next one, which you can argue. It's good for your body.
Okay.
Is tricking good for your body or not?
Well, the reason I mentioned that is because it can be bad for your body, which then in turn is bad for your mind state, because if you're in pain all the time, just living your general day-to-day life is way harder. It's way worse.
Yeah.
So
that is true. That is true.
But it's like,
I think it depends. It's one of those. It depends how much you do it and the way you do it. If you're doing it in a reckless way and destroying your body, it's not good for your body. I think tricking, if you have regular rest, you stretch enough, you condition enough, you're not forcing ahead and slamming all the time. So you're doing things with good technique and like building up. I think it's pretty good for your body. I think it's good exercise. You could argue that it trains one side more than the other, but I think as long as you do some other exercise to balance it out, it doesn't need to be that big a problem. I've not really had problems with that, to be honest.
And you say that, but a lot of some of our injuries,
they might have been down to that.
The muscle injuries that we've had probably have been because of that at one point.
Yeah. Well, let's have a look at one of these comments. Let's see what people are saying. They're all standard ones. Like, does it help to train with people? I think for a lot of people it does. Well, we could get into that as a whole topic, actually.
Well, let's do some more positives to this. And then Okay.
More positives for tricking being good for your mental health. I think this is a massive one for me. I think the fact that you can do tricking and not need any equipment and do it by yourself, you can just go to the park and you can feel really good and have a great time. I think that's an amazing, just the fact that that exists, that you can just give yourself all this happiness and feel great without needing anyone or anything else. I think even just knowing that that's a possibility is amazing.
Well, you know what that reminds me of? Something you normally do alone when you're in the shower. You can give yourself pure pleasure. Just your description of that, I was just like, you set it up. You set it up. Anyway, so the other thing was,
why am I doing this to you? You dirty bastard.
Listen, you said it, not me.
Filthy. Look at it, hairy palms. This guy. Hairy palms.
Alright, so the other side,
like a gorilla.
The other side of it is the progression. Because whether it's big or small, no matter what it is, there's always something good to be taken from a session. Even if you went to the session and you just got hurt, but you trained for the whole time and it just kind of hurt your body a bit because you're aching and all that kind of thing. At the time, it may not feel great, but you could see it as like an active rest day. You will have made progress with some of the tricks that you've done, no matter what. And I think that's amazing for general mental health because it feels like you're working.
I think when you get injured, you feel like you've gone backwards.
No. I mean, even on the not going as far as injuries, but when you're on, when you're so achy and you're still training, and you walk out of it and you're like, that was a shit session because my body just ached.
It feels good to push yourself. Yeah. It feels good to try your hardest. I think overall, there's a lot of good things to be gained from tricking. But yeah, if you're watching on the YouTube, then let us know in the comments what you think. What are the pros and cons for your mental health? How's it affected you? Tell us a tragic story about how it's cheered you up or how it's ruined your whole life. And if you disagree, let us know about it and we'll talk about it.
Well, should we just do a quick one for each of us? Because we normally just talk about the times we cried.
Oh yeah, we do.
We do normally talk about times
we talk about crying too much on these.
I know, so we should talk about times where it's been an amazing, like it's had an amazing result on our lives, or it's helped us through hard times.
Oh yeah.
So for me, one of the hardest times of my life, I remember it was just the only thing that I could do where no matter what was going on outside of the gym, I could just remove all of that from my brain and I could just do my flips and nothing else mattered.
Is that back when you used to tumble along the whole football field?
Yeah.
You know, Omid used to go out in the night and like tumble the length of a football pitch, and he'd do them really fast, and he'd always be wearing jeans.
I mean, I wasn't prepared.
That was the young Omid I met, wearing jeans, doing back handsprings for ages.
It was something to do. It kept me off the streets, you know, because it was either that or drugs.
Yeah, it kept him out of trouble.
Or heroin.
Handspringing your way away from heroin. Fucking hell.
How's it helped you?
How's tricking helped me?
Yeah. Did it help you with your rage?
Tricking's helped me with my rage. Tricking's helped me a lot with my rage. With my bloodlust.
Yeah. Bloodlust. Rage and sadness.
No, I find because before I thought that tricking, I don't know, I thought that it was tricking making me feel good. But I thought about this a lot when I've been injured and stuff. Tricking doesn't necessarily make me feel good, it makes me not feel bad.
I guess
I
makes
feel like
you feel normal.
Like when I don't trick, I'm like, oh, this is kind of just how I felt when I was like 14, 15. This is just kind of how I felt all the time. Like when I can't trick for too long, when it goes over a month or two, I start to feel like when I was 14 before, and I see people in the street, and I just want to punch them in the neck. Like, you know? You know,
I see
an old lady, and I just want to like put my hands together like this and just go like, like right in the side of her chin or something.
Well,
and then knock her glasses off.
I don't really know what to say to that.
That's what happens if I don't do spinning kicks.
Well, I don't know.
It's a mess.
I don't even know how to come back to that. Just don't go up to any old ladies and squeeze their head really hard. Just promise me you won't do that. No matter how long you're not tricking for.
Well, don't squeeze all.
Don't do it.
I try not to. This is why I practice, so that, you know, I don't want anyone's head to get squeezed. Like, no one wants that, but that's what would happen if I couldn't trick for too long.
Oh, it's getting too dark in here. We're gonna have to get your shiny head up.
Gee. So I didn't want to turn the light on above because it makes my head. It makes my head like really, really shiny.
We switch sides because you don't want his head to be too shiny.
So you know what? Here we go then. Right.
That's it. Let's make it really obvious. Oh. You're just gonna come back and you're gonna look like, oh, my brow's shiny as well.
You see?
Looks like someone's breathed on it and done this. Someone's buffed the side of your head.
Do you see what I live with? It's like one of those waxing machines that's been on my head. Oh no!
Just allow it. Let's move on to the next.
Back to the show.
So do you want to do the comment that you said before, or do you want to do a different one?
Well, there's some better ones. One of them is this is a good one. This is a whole topic, whole section. What's your greatest fear, Omid?
My greatest fear.
What's your greatest fear?
Ghosts. What's my greatest fear? Just in life or in tricks?
In life.
In life, damn.
What's your greatest fear?
My greatest fear is, I guess, regret. And I don't mean that in like I have no regrets type mentality. It's like, when all the signs are there, and you know you should have done something, whether it be to prevent injury, or to not fuck your life up, or whatever the case may be, and you knew you shouldn't have done it, but you do it anyway.
That's your greatest fear?
Yeah.
You regret?
Yeah.
Over someone like cutting your limbs off?
Oh, that kind of fear.
Well, I'm talking any fear.
Okay. Well, yeah, getting chased by a shark from miles and then having it devour me really slowly. That's actually a big fear.
No, but a more realistic one.
What do you mean? I got open water swimming. I'm a proper swimmer.
You're not a proper swimmer. You don't even have a cap. Like,
I got goggles. I'm halfway to a proper swimmer.
He's not a proper swimmer. Omid wants to be a proper swimmer. We've been having this argument for months now. He thinks he's a proper swimmer, but he's not. He doesn't have a cap. Most of the time, he's just not got the gear. He's not got the technique.
I have got the gear. I've got lats for days.
You might have a swimmer's body. Alright, my greatest fear. I feel probably. I worry about being imprisoned. That's one of them. Good one. That's a big one.
Oh, I'll tell you.
Because that's a real thing that could happen.
Yeah.
It could be like I could be driving, and I could because sometimes I just zone out. I could zone out and kill someone and then end up in prison. And also stuff like traveling to countries like Thailand and shit. You know, people have traveled to Thailand before, like British tourists. And if you end up, I don't know, if you end up with drugs on your person, even if you don't buy them or something, if someone ends up putting some, like someone you're traveling with, puts something in your bag or whatever, and you get caught, you can be in prison for life. And so I worry about being in a foreign prison for life as well. That's always been a big one for me.
Yeah.
Because we talked about it before at the garrison. We're like, would you travel to North Korea? And Kyle said he would travel to North Korea, but like, no, I wouldn't. It's not worth it. I wouldn't.
It would be great for the videos.
It's not worth it. It's just not worth being in some torture camp. Which you might not. It probably would be fine, but it could not be fine. That happened to that American guy because he took a poster off the wall.
Yeah. I don't know.
He died.
And
I wouldn't go.
I don't know. That's a very real one.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
Yeah, something more along those lines for me as well. But let's not get into it because.
All right. Next topic. Let's see. If you underrated every trick, you would commit to a lot more stuff and improve way faster. Because most people think they can't do tricks because it's way out of their league. I get what you mean, Bill Zoid. I get what you mean. Because, yeah, that kind of comes down to self-confidence and self-belief being like a huge part of tricking. Normally the people that get really good are the ones who just believe they can do all these crazy things. Because, like Alexander Anderson, for example, before he like done quad cork, then he totally believed he could get quad cork.
Yeah.
And it's just not the sort of thing you'd ever do if you didn't believe that. It wouldn't ever happen by chance. Because at some point you're going to have to go for this move and fully 100% believe you're landing it, even though you've never landed it before. That's a crazy thing to believe. You've got to have 100% faith in something happening that has never happened before. Because on the hard moves, if you don't have that faith, then you're not going to put in everything it takes to land. You're not going to land by chance. No one ever surprises themselves with like a quad cork. It's just not. It's not going to be a surprise.
Well, that's a really weird one because like generally in most, I don't know, Western societies, it's like the kind of advice that's given to you from a young age is that you should believe in yourself, but not too much.
Yeah.
And it's such a polarizing place to be when you're a child because you don't want to be that kid that's cocky and arrogant, but you also do need a certain amount of delusional self-belief in order to look at something you've never done before and go, I can do that. I know I can fucking do that. But that's what I don't know, that's one of the most useful things that's ever got me through life with tricks and stuff like that.
You get conditioned in a weird way by school. Because it's like they tell you to believe in yourself and that you can do anything. But at the same time, they tell you, oh, if you don't go to university and get a degree, you'll never be able to get a high-paying job.
Yeah,
you'll never be able to if you don't have a degree. Like, how much do you really believe in yourself? You know, like they tell you both of the things at the same time. If you don't get good grades, you won't ever do anything in your life. At the same time, as saying to believe in yourself.
Yeah, it's a strange one. I don't really know how to combat that with like a broader system. But I think, in my opinion, you should have self-belief. But you do have to walk the line, though. You need to think about these things enough. You can't just be like, right, I believe in myself 100% wholeheartedly, and then that's it. You don't give it any deeper thought, because that's when you do end up becoming arrogant and a bit of a prick, and nobody wants to be around you.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be able to grow personally and in any other way.
But that's what I think tricking's a good thing for, because tricking, I like that it's kind of a meritocracy, you know, in some ways, not completely, because obviously lots of people have a massive advantage to other people, but I like the fact that if you put in a lot of work, you try really hard, you practice lots, then you're going to get decent at tricking. And it teaches you a lot for life, because your tricking progression doesn't care if you don't feel like training. If you don't train when you're meant to, you don't get as good. Well, you don't get any extra credit. You just don't get as good.
Tricking just holds you accountable. Yeah, and that's the greatest thing, because it's not a teacher that's like, oh, you know what, I know you missed the deadline, but I'll give you an extension. It's like, well, no, you didn't train hard enough, so you didn't land these tricks, and then you didn't condition enough, so you ended up getting injured or whatever. But yeah, I think that's one of the best things about tricking, in my opinion.
Yeah,
because it slaps you down when you know that you should have done more. And it also lifts you up when you've been putting the work in, generally.
And that's another argument for like why you should try and actually get good at it. Because if you just treat it as, oh, I'm just going to go do some flips for fun, then you can have fun, but you don't get that same, like, it doesn't teach you those same lessons. You don't understand what it's like to really try at something and then see yourself like struggle and eventually overcome and get better at something that you found really hard. You don't get that if you just go and do some flips, because you never get past a pretty low level, really.
Yeah, and I think leading on to like the passion side of it, like if you put all that work in, I think it's the same as any kind of relationship with a person. You have to put work in order for it to be nurtured to the point where it's better. And it's like, if you're passionate about something initially, you don't just start off immediately passionate about something. You have to work at it. And then I believe once you know how to be passionate about things, then it means you can then become passionate about the conditioning and the stretching and all the other things that are then just going to feed into the original thing that you're really passionate about. And that's only a positive thing.
That's true. Yeah, it makes you enjoy. Tricking does make you enjoy like exercise and stretching more, because when you see those gains come like directly into your tricks, it's like a way of, you get to reap the rewards of it. You don't just like look strong and feel flexible. You actually get to go out and
give it like
use
a practical
that,
use.
play with it. Yeah.
And just, I don't know, for me, it kind of taught me how to be passionate about the way things look as a whole. And I think if I hadn't have started with tricking, maybe something else would have come along, but because I was passionate about something, it made it a lot easier for me to also appreciate the beauty in other things, because love these flips, don't I?
You do. I don't think we ever talked about that we love flips.
It's weird.
I don't think
it's weird. It's weird that we've never spoken about that on this flips show.
That leads us on to our next topic. You might be wondering, don't look at it. Don't look at it. Alright?
What's the next topic?
Is tricking important?
Bloody good question. No. It's just
someone might have told you before, like, oh, you flipping it, messing around with your flips, jumping about at the park. Maybe your mom said that and you were like, I'm training hard, Mom, I'm trying my best. And you're like, it's serious, it's really hard. You know how many people can do cork? No.
Do you know how good I am?
You know how much harder it is than a round-off layout?
I was 2,623rd in the world to do round-off flick, 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 back handspring, and then flash kick.
See, so you might have had that conversation with your mom. She might have disrespected your spinning kicks and flips. But you know, so we're answering that big question. Is it important? Is tricking important? Which side do you want? I'm going to argue not important. You argue important.
Okay,
Tell me
cool.
why is tricking not important?
Tricking is important.
No, I'm doing not important. You're doing important. Why is it important?
Why is it important? Because it teaches you how to build a stronger mind. Let's start with that. So, doing all these flips, you may say that, oh, you're just doing some flips in a park or in a gym or whatever. It's a waste of money and time. But no, you learn valuable lessons about how to navigate through difficult challenges.
Do you learn that much though, doing something that's fun? Like, you're just going out and you're doing something you enjoy doing. You might as well be playing a video game. Like, you're doing something that doesn't give you a skill you can leverage in the real world. It's a pointless thing. You're just going out and having fun. You might as well be at the club off your tits on ket.
This whole conversation is making me want to strike you, but I will refrain.
Well, go on. Why do you
I'll strike you with my words. I just wholeheartedly disagree, because if all of the things that you can learn, not necessarily physically, because at the end of the day, the only time it's ever really going to benefit you physically is because you're agile and stronger and you may be more flexible. So let's say, for example, someone threw a shuriken dart at you, a shuriken throwing star at you, you could drop into the splits and it could miss you. But besides that situation...
I mean, that's one practical use, but how many practical uses are there for tricking?
Well, no. Going back to what you said, how it's not...
When you learn more from like going and studying a skill, spending more time in the library reading some books, wouldn't that teach you more?
Well, no, because you have to overcome challenges. And it's not necessarily the physical act of doing these things, it's the mental gains that you get. So you start with a thing that seems kind of unattainable, and then you work and you work and you work, even through the times when you want to give up, and you discover that you're actually capable of overcoming pretty much any challenge that stands in your way, as long as you work hard and smart at it.
What about if you just trick? If you just trick for fun and you don't really get much better, is tricking still important?
Yeah.
Why is it important then?
The same way
you're not overcoming challenges.
The same way that a 60-year-old
You're
woman
just pissing around.
The same way that a 60-year-old woman going to the gym and lifting the 2 kg dumbbells is important. It gives you even the smallest amount of enjoyment, because not all of life should just be a hard slog that's productive where you have to go through trials and tribulations.
Well, why else do you think it's important, or is it just?
No, I think it's important because that exact thing. Like if you're getting satisfaction out of something, it shows you that you can actually progress in things when other people are telling you that it's not important and that you're not going to gain anything from it. So I think there's a benefit from that. I think it proves that you shouldn't just listen to what everybody tells you, because the importance and the value of things is subjective.
What about it isolating you from your social circles? Everyone else is out having fun, you're at the park doing ninja flips. Well, they don't think you're a twat.
Well, that's somebody who's on the extreme end of the spectrum, and I think if it's important enough to you to warrant you isolating yourself.
You're not progressing at school, you're failing your exams, you can barely hold down a job because you don't want to miss the sesh.
I think
is it that important?
I don't think that's an importance thing. I think that's just a foolish way to live your life, because you should still be completely responsible for your own actions and for anything that you need to do in your life, because you can't be a drain on other people. It doesn't matter what you're doing, you can't then just rely on other people to just have your back. But that's got, in my eyes, nothing to do with tricks. Yeah, that's just a mentality thing. You shouldn't be fucking about.
Well, cool. I agree anyway. Yeah. That's a hard one to argue the other side, because I do agree. I think tricking is important like anything. I think the more importance you place on it, the more important it becomes. If you value, like the more you value getting good, then the more you're going to have to overcome to do that. Because if things go badly, you're going to feel something. It's like if you're playing a game. If you're playing a game and you don't care at all if you win, that game isn't going to be as fun. You don't get as much out of it. If you're just playing, I just play for fun, but you're not even trying to win, you're not going to have as much fun as the guy who's like pissed when he loses and then like over the moon when he wins.
Yeah, because you do need those peaks and, peaks?
Yeah, otherwise you eventually give up. Yeah, I think treating it as something that is important, even if it's not. In the same way, football, is that even important? People are spending millions on players.
Yeah.
So, anything can be important. It's what you decide to place that importance on. And I think you get more out of it if you do put importance on it.
Yeah.
We got some comments here. We got some people coming in hot. We got Sylvan Vasilda, what's it called? The
GM
Switch King. He says, do you guys think that tricking is hard because it mostly involves self-discipline? Probably because you probably have no teacher in the beginning, unless you get tricking lessons, of course. I think that's something that I guess is changing a bit nowadays, because tricking, for everyone out there, from pretty much everyone, you normally have to take, there's not many people who aren't taking the lead in their own progression. Some people still have coaches, and like what I do with Kojo's Trick Lab, that's not really a coach though. We're not telling you what to do, we're just saying if you want to learn this, here's all the information that will make it easier to learn. So I don't really, I actively try to not guide people too much. I just want to give them the tools, and then you can take what you want from it. Take any bits. I'm giving you a load of perspective and a load of information. You do what you want. I don't try and tell people what to do. But I think that is a really important thing. Like the fact that people do tricking by themselves. You don't have anyone else. You don't have a set out route like gymnastics with progression levels. You kind of just go into it and you learn what you want to learn. And even if people normally, you start off copying other things and just doing what you learn, but learning how to set goals for yourself, work hard for those goals for yourself and achieve them when no one else is really that invested in you achieving those goals, I think that can help you a ton with anything you want to do in the future. Because, for example, I can always draw from my own life, like starting Kojo's Trick Lab, then it wasn't like there were people around me who thought that could be a viable business for me to live from. But because of tricking, because of me setting out to achieve goals that only I cared about, and then working hard and eventually achieving them, then I was like, well, I can set this other goal and then know that I can achieve it, work hard to achieve it without anyone else having to tell me that it's something that I could do. So I think you get a lot from that.
I think you're right, and it can be summarized in quite a simple way. That you can get this from anything, but tricking definitely gave me this path in life. Once you learn, it teaches you how to learn things. And once you learn how to learn things, it means you can achieve anything as long as you apply the things that you've already learned about learning to then progress in a completely different thing or just further with your tricking. So I think that's one of the reasons, going back to Sylvan's original point, it's one of the reasons it's hard, because self-discipline as a whole is difficult. It's a lifetime endeavor. And there's not that many things where you try your entire life to achieve that thing.
Yeah, and
you can always get better.
From meeting, because we've both met some very elite gymnasts and stuff, and it is very different there. I don't know, just because I can recognize other people who've had some similar experiences to me, it's very different. Even if they get to an elite level, obviously you have to work very hard for a long time, for years on end. So it's not like it's easy, it's really hard. But it's very different. They've got their families, they pretty much always have their family support. They're like, oh, my son or daughter's a gymnast, they're going to these competitions. So their family are taking them to training, supporting them.
Paying for it all.
Paying for stuff. And they always have a coach. So they have a coach who's guiding them. Any questions on technique, they always know what to train. They've always got someone supporting them, giving them energy, like telling them, all right, we're going to do 5 more of these. They normally have great facilities. Like, when do you ever see them not having what they need? Any like elite gymnast, they have loads of access to a gym. Whereas for us, I'd say one of the hardest parts about getting good at tricking, it wasn't the training bit. It was just that you had to do it all by yourself. Like, half of it was me like figuring out how to get a gym session. Like, to get a 3rd gym session every week, then I used to go to Leicester, and to get to Leicester, I'd cycle 5 miles, I'd get a train for an hour, and then I'd cycle 3 more miles, and then I'd session, and then I'd do the same thing on the way back and get back after midnight. And I did that after a full day's working, and like I had to pay, like lots of my money was spent on traveling and paying for sessions as well. So like gymnasts, it's a different struggle. Like, you're struggling to learn the moves, but everything else, there's a lot of support. When you're a tricker, your family aren't gonna, some people's families, but not many people's families are gonna be really heavily supporting it.
Although that is becoming more and more common.
That is becoming more common.
Because especially in our hometown in Birmingham, there's a lot of kids where their families do really support them in order to progress. No, and I think it's a great thing. And there's examples of this throughout the history of tricking. But I think it is one of the harder things, that if it's just that thing that drives you, you may not have the support of your family and friends.
It's like Sylvan said, that's why I like the African trickers. No spring floor, no problem. We train outside without shoes. And it's like, it's just a different struggle. So those trickers, for example, they might not be as good as Michael Guthrie or Jacob Pinto, but they didn't have their own gym and start as a kid and get support at all these martial arts events and coaching. Like, they didn't get any of that. They've just learned it by themselves while having to manage their life wherever they live with no facilities. So even though they might be a fraction of the level, it doesn't mean it's a fraction of the achievement. It could be just, like, I've not seen their exact life, but it could be just as big an achievement. And they're not going to get anywhere near as much props because they're not as good. But it could have been a lot harder for them to get there. It's why Johan's one of the most inspiring trickers for me, because he didn't have all of that, like his own gym and all of that. He was just training on hard floor when he got really good for most of the time. Training outside in cold, wet Finland, and he still got amazingly good. So even if someone else got better than him, like, I don't know, like Shosei or whatever, it doesn't take away from the people who do have better access, because it's still an incredible achievement, but there's no denying that it is easier than when you don't have that equipment. So I'm not saying less appreciation for people who've had these things, because we both got lucky. We had good gym access for quite a while, but I think more appreciation for the people who don't have these things. That's what I think. So not taken away, but giving, like,
to me, it's just on a personal level. It's more of an inspirational story. Whereas, it's the difference between inspiration and motivation, because it's a lot easier to look at somebody who has had the perfect surrounding and be motivated by what you're seeing them do. However, if you see somebody who's had to really just push and train on wet asphalt, as Johan used to call it, it's a truly inspirational story, because he then went on to be killing all of these different battles and earning money and doing what he loved, even through all the bullshit.
And that's a within tricking example, and that's something that I think separates tricking from a lot of other sports, because even the people who had a lot, they still have barely anything compared to top athletes in a bunch of other sports. So I think that's part of the tricker experience. It's like we're getting good without loads of support, whereas any gymnast, they always have loads of support, pretty much.
Yeah.
But we're going to run out of battery on the camera, so we'll wrap this one up there. Thanks everyone who joined us live. If you're watching on YouTube, let us know what you think. If you got any topics you want us to cover, then comment them and we will cover them. We're going to get through everything on this.
Every single thing.
We've blabbered to each other for like 60 hours and we're going to do 700 more. Alright, so join us on the ride.
If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and just help us grow this show, because we enjoy it. So, step fit.